Alright, so I'm here to talk a little bit about my approach to how player collision works in this game right now. Because as I was mentioning in my updates earlier, I was having troubles figuring out exactly how I want the collision to happen. The main problem is that the root capsule component that you can see here cannot really be resized um, when they're spawned. So I can make everything else bigger, but this capsule component still will be the same size, and I can't change it to be smaller unless I make the whole character smaller. And I can't move it away from the root. And the other thing is that the way this collider blocks is that it just stops all movement. So you can't push into this capsule with the physics system unless you're actually applying force. So one character, so in the originally one character bumping against another character will not move them. So the way I have it right now is that I have a separate um, movement box here, which checks for collision with the other player. And whenever it collides with another player, it will push the character away. So it's something super simple, but the idea behind that system is that I was actually having a lot of problems with friction earlier because I used to just disable this blocking and then disable this capsule component so that I can start pushing the characters around. But the thing is that if I apply the same force to both people, because the character movement doesn't apply friction, apply braking friction due to the character movement, the first character will actually pass the second character while it's moving, which is not what I want because even though you're applying the same force to both characters, the second character, which isn't doing anything, is blocked, or it's not blocked. It's getting friction applied to it, whereas the first character with actual movement input isn't getting the friction applied to it. And there's this whole host of problem of like characters jumping into each other, and when players are colliding, it's unsure because I'm not exactly sure how the other fighting games do it. It seems like they just let one character push the other out of the way without affecting their movement speed, but it seems like it seems like once they bump into each other, it like gets fixed through them, and you can just push them while you want. But that isn't really exactly possible here. And it's kind of weird with like if I base it off acceleration or if I base it off of movement speed, then sometimes the character that is not moving as much cannot move, even though both characters might be stopped in the same place. It doesn't really make sense. It's just I've tried a lot of different implementation, none of them really work. So I went with this really simple one, and it's really around the idea of this simple system where I'm pushing one character out of the way if they're overlapping. But the idea here is that I'm gonna have some sort of like friction or like some factor that changes how well you can push one character to the other. And the first way this is set is that instead of all these sorts of complex logic, I'm gonna set the character with lower movement speed to have a higher push factor, so that I get pushed out of the way more. So that if a character that's faster than me is bumping into me, right, I'm gonna have a high push factor, and he's gonna push me. And if it's the other way around, I'm gonna push him. And if we're both going at the same speed, we're both gonna push each other. And if they get too close, then it's totally fine because I've enabled my capsule component to be blocking. So the end result really is that it's something like this. Let's see, right. The result is that you can push one character around, and because the capsule component is enabled, I'm not really worried about them like overlapping or crossing each other. But we still get this nice pushing away. Here we can get, because the movement speed of one is bigger than because the movement speed of the character the character jumping onto it is faster. The push factor isn't too strong, so it's not getting pushed away very far, which is what I want. And this character, it's backed up against a corner array, so it doesn't really matter. So yeah, I haven't put back dash and throw dashes yet, but I think it still interacts decently with dashes, even though when you dash, it technically you go slower than just walking into them. That's something I definitely want to fix, and I think that's just a fix through changing the dash, the velocity push factor. So like, the whole push factor thing gives me a lot of control over how things get pushed and when and how far things get pushed at certain actions, and I can increase it or decrease it based on what exactly the situation. Rather than some sort of physics based, or I was doing some collision resolution stuff earlier that was just getting too complicated, and these games don't exactly follow physics anyway, so it's probably fine. So um, yeah, I mean, that's what I have right now. It's not the best, it works, so I'm gonna keep it right now, keep it as is, until kind of the situation warrants an improvement. But it works out pretty well. It's working pretty well. You know, I'm getting the fact that I can push each character around. I'm not bouncing on people's heads anymore, and that's kind of exactly what I need. So one thing that goes along with this player collision stuff was actually, I think turning around was a problem earlier, where I didn't want the character to turn around while I was over them. That's a good question, actually. Oh yeah. There's one more thing, was that let's see if I can find it. Oh, maybe it wasn't relevant. Maybe it was probably a problem with my previous system that didn't work out very well. Because I was having a block in front of you that pushed the character away, but then if you jumped over them, they would turn around and start pushing you away very fast. But that's really not the case anymore, which is great. So yeah.